Welcome to The Difference Makers, a Paladin Security podcast. We'll take you inside the world of security and share firsthand expertise from our industry professionals. Join us as we dive into everything security and explore the journeys of those who go above and beyond to make our world a safer and friendlier place.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us on this eye-opening security conversation with Director Aaron Kolarcik. Here we'll uncover some of the extraordinary and fascinating work that goes behind the success of aviation security programs, event security programs, and more. Get ready to be inspired by his exemplary security journey moving up the ranks as he shares invaluable career advice to succeed in the security industry. Well, hello Aaron, and thanks for joining us in the Difference Makers podcast. It's such an honor to have you here. How are you feeling?
Feeling good, Diego. It's really good to be here. Thanks for inviting me onto the show.
Yeah, the show. We're thrilled to have you here. Before anything, I'd love to know a bit more about Aaron Kolarcik, a bit of your background, your education, and obviously, more importantly, what got you into the security world?
Yeah, sure. So I have a bachelor's of arts in sociology. I went to UVic and got that there, the University of Victoria. And for the brief, bio, I grew up in Surrey on the mainland and moved to Victoria when I was 17 to go to UVic. And then I did get into the security industry probably a couple of years later. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. So when I first started in the security industry, my dad worked for a grocery store. He was manager. And so I was having a hard time finding work that summer. I think it was my second year of university. And he said, hey, come work for the loss prevention company, like the security company that works for us. And so I did the training and I got, I started working. They applied for my security license, and about 2 weeks into me already working, they said, actually, you never told us you were 19. You weren't 19. And I was like, I never lied about that. So they had to ask me to stop working, and I went home. But then I reapplied with them a few months later when I turned 19 and got the job again.
Again, so, I love it.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a weird start to the security industry. But yeah, so I did loss prevention for almost a year, and I found that job really challenging, and just because I'm a very social person. Loss prevention, you're really in the shadows, you're trying to see if people are stealing. And so, you can't really socialize much. You're not there to be a customer service presence. You're not there to, to help people in a lot of ways that security officers are, that, when you're wearing the uniform, you're there to be a visible presence, right? And so that's not the role of loss prevention. After doing that, I, left that role for a little while. I was working at Starbucks, and then I saw that Paladin in Victoria had an ad for a bike patrol guard, and that was really interesting to me because I had the security license already. The pay was better than Starbucks, and I thought it would be really fun. I was already biking everywhere at the time in Victoria because it's pretty easy to get around by bike. So I said, hey, that sounds fun. I'll give it a shot. And, bike patrol is something that gets made fun of very easily by other people. But my perspective was, that water off the duck's back. I didn't mind being teased a bit while I was biking around town because I was exercising and getting paid. So
exactly.
So it was a good intro to the security industry. I love that role. I really enjoyed it. It kept me fit, and then from there, I don't know if you want me to go through the whole Paladin bio, but
definitely. I know you have what Paladin would say, a promotion from within.
Yeah, certainly.
So definitely walk me through that path.
Yeah, so I did that job while I was still going to UVic, and then once I graduated, I went full time as soon as I could with Paladin, and started working nights in a retail security environment. And then from there, I really just took every opportunity that was available for advancement. So I applied to be the mobile supervisor overnight, and that was really kind of my break in a way. And I was really happy because it was my first time really supervising other people and being a leader. And I thought that experience was really wonderful because when you're working at night, you have to make your own decisions and build your own confidence because you can follow the instructions. But as we all know from working in the security industry, all the weird stuff happens when nobody is around, to give you instructions, right? So you really need to use your own judgment to problem solve. So I tried not to call my managers unless it was something I felt like they really needed to know. And so what I would do is I just write my reports and make decisions as best as I could and try to document really well why I did what I did so that, hey, if anybody has any questions, they can see at least why I did the stupid thing that I did, my justification for it, right? And then they can call me in the morning, if they need to. So that was a really, really key role for me. And then from there, I went on to be a supervisor at a government site and then at the Royal BC Museum, which was also an incredibly formative experience for me in my career. And then from there, again, continued to apply to different opportunities as they became available and ended up in the office as an SPM. That was in about 2015 when that happened. And again, from there, just continued to take on new challenges and you really seize every opportunity that I could to advance my career and learn new things. And and then back in April of 2021, I got the opportunity to be the branch manager of Vancouver Island. And from there, that's basically, where I am now. As a director, I'm still largely doing a similar role, a bit expanded from there, but yeah, it's been quite a ride, and I've really felt like Paladin has met me every step of the way, with new challenges and new opportunities. So it's been
amazing.
Really wonderful.
Love that story.
Yeah. What I was going to say about that too is just that while I've been with Paladin for just over 10 years now, I don't feel like I've been doing the same job for more than a year or more than 2 years at any given time. It's always changed and it's always grown, and that's really what's kept me engaged and motivated. Yeah,
it definitely feels like you've had like a very dynamic career. And speaking of that, rumor is that your favorite site when working as an officer was the Royal BC Museum. Why was that?
Oh man, yeah, I mean that's true. It's because it's just so motivating to be around people that are there pursuing their passion, right? At the museum, it's a learning institution. There's a lot of people doing research there, professors, etc. Like they have massive collections of art and specimens of birds and insects and First Nations artifacts and things like that. And so, every day when you would go into work, there would be something interesting going on. And it's people there, like I said, following their passions and pursuing their education. It's just a really inspiring, motivating place to be around. And then on top of that, everything comes alive at night. So you get to deal with the exhibits as well. So of course.
Night at the museum, right?
Yeah, naturally. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that's funny because I think now that you mentioned that you had a bachelor's in sociology, I think that kind of helped you maybe to understand people as well and engage with other people. That kind of helped you throughout.
I would say so. I think sociology is a really interesting discipline, and like it can apply to a lot of different a lot of different careers. But I think for a law enforcement kind of career, it really helps you to understand context for people's behavior.
Gotcha.
And if you're dealing with somebody really difficult or somebody that's, on the street, dealing with homelessness, it's a lot easier, I think, to approach those people and to have compassion for them when you can put it into this context of knowing that, like, there's big societal forces for people. That there's big societal forces that impact our behavior and the way that people are, interacting with each other and just have compassion for that.
Yeah, no, and I think a compassionate approach, an empathy led approach to security is also it always brings better results. And I think at Paladin, we always kind of strive for that. Now, I want to jump into something that I know you're really passionate about and probably know a lot about, and that is aviation security. Now, aviation security is an industry, I guess, a vertical, I should say, a very special one. And I know you work closely with YYJ, the Victoria International Airport, for the security needs. So let's start there. What does aviation security entail? And I know it's a lot, but let's start.
Yeah, and I think just before saying anything more about this, I'll like take a step back and just acknowledge some of my ignorance. I think like what I've learned about aviation security has been over the last couple of years, and there are people that dedicate their whole lives to that. And so, I think I've learned what I needed to largely to create the security program there and update it and maintain it with our staff on site. But there's definitely a lot of people who know a lot more than me. So I'll make sure to be really clear about that. We started working with YYJ in 2021, taking over from a really long time provider that was there. I think their previous security provider had been there for about 40 years.
Oh, wow.
So we had an uphill battle bringing new staff into the site, and also creating new procedures and new ways of doing things. Cultural change like that is always really hard to push, right? And it's difficult when you're coming to a group of people that don't know Paladin and like don't know you, and you have to tell them like that you are there to support them and you want to see them succeed and you want to build them up and provide them with support and give them raises. And some people are very, very loyal, right? And so it's hard to break that culture and to build trust. And that was a big thing when we were doing the rollout of that program. And then, so that was the one side, like the people side. And then on the like administrative side, we worked with some members of the corporate team to create some very specialized training materials, like you mentioned. Some of our most interesting materials that we created have a lot to do with accessibility and assisting guests with disabilities, which is really critical at airports. At YYJ, they have a program called a PESO, which is a Public Engagement Safety Officer. And so the role of that, I think it started at YVR, but the role of that person is really to be in the airport and look for people that may need assistance of any kind, and helping them get to their flight, and then helping them get from their flight to their transportation, to their ground transportation away from the airport. So, and it's really about emphasizing everybody's right to travel. And so we created some specialized training programs to help our staff deliver customer service, number one, but then also to recognize and assist guests with different disabilities and different levels of ability, right? So, just knowing when people might have, cognitive impairment or like learning disabilities, or just even different languages, right? And knowing how to help those people communicate and to get around safely. And so that's a really interesting program. And you really get to, when you see our staff interacting with people in that capacity, it's really wonderful to see the way that you can really make someone's day.
That's amazing.
YYJ has kind of like a comment section on their website where they take feedback, and we've received some letters from people just expressing how thankful they were to our staff to help, like for the help they received to get to their vehicles and get home safely, or like they're writing it on behalf of their relatives who wanted to pass that on. So one of the other programs we've done was assisting guests with disabilities, and that is, I think the actual name for it is body dynamics. So our staff sometimes help people get in and out of wheelchairs and help them move through the facility. And so if you're not careful, you can really injure yourself or another person if you're not operating those pieces of equipment safely and respectfully. And so we created a specialized training program for that as well.
Amazing. There's a saying out there in security as well, that security can be a traveler's first impression. And I think you just described how kind of Paladin makes it count with, customer success, making an impact. Now, I find that the PESO role really, really interesting because it's very, very specialized, and definitely there is specialized training going into the security program. What are some of the others, other services that can be integrated into aviation security? Like, is there, maybe access control?
Yeah, certainly. So at YYJ, like, we do a lot of different roles. So the PESO is just one of them. We also do a pretty straightforward, like, patroller role that patrols the fence line and does general security duties, including customer service. But so then on top of that, we run the Security Operations Center at YYJ. And so our staff there, much like the 24/7 Operations Center that Paladin does in Vancouver, we have lists of different protocols and a ton of cameras that we monitor. And so the goal is to really just document and respond to situations as they evolve. And we work with the airport fire service and the police from time to time, just in responding to different incidents. And it's one of those roles where you show up for work and you really have absolutely no idea what is going to happen in a day.
Right. No.
And so our staff go through a ton of training to do that position. It's pretty high stress and it's very complex. And we have some really wonderful people that have a lot of experience that do that role for us.
Amazing.
And then on top of that, we do security escorts. At airports, there's always work being done, and construction work, capital projects, that sort of thing. And so in order to go beyond the primary security line at an airport, you need to have a RAIC, which is a restricted area identity card. And if you don't have one of those, you need to be escorted by somebody who does have one, right? So that's where we come in, and we provide those escorts to a lot of different companies that are doing any kind of work at the airport. So that's another role that we do. And then the last one there's two other ones that we could touch on really briefly. But
sure.
So we do the Pass Control Office, which works with Transport Canada and issuing those RAICs. And that's kind of a specialized role that's not often subcontracted to a service provider. It's usually done in-house by airports. So that's been a really interesting program to be a part of. When we started that at the airport, we actually had to send our officer who was going to do that role to another airport to learn because it was so specialized and critical. And then we also do a role on it's based in a vehicle. It's kind of jargony, but it's on the apron or the critical restricted area of the airport. And what they're doing there is maintaining the safety of that area when planes are coming in and leaving, or there's other vehicles coming in and out of that area. So the guards there have to be very attentive and always watching to make sure that that area is operating safely and securely.
Amazing. No, it's great to hear. Like, if someone needs specialized training to do certain kind of role, you kind of champion it, and that part of sending him to another airport for training, that really talks about like how dynamic and exciting this role can be.
It's great to be a part of it, honestly. Like having done a lot of different kinds of security over the years, getting involved with an airport really felt like the next level. This is really serious. There's government regulations surrounding it, Transport Canada, and so building that program and working with our team out there to roll it out was an incredible experience. And it really felt like, like another step in my career.
Yeah, definitely. No, and that was an awesome brief of like what aviation security is and like what working in aviation security entails. And I think with your quote unquote brief experience over the last couple of years, I think you definitely learned a lot and grown a lot and know how to operate something as delicate as an airport. Now I want to move to something a bit different, which is a topic that you might also know a lot about, because I think it's very prominent around in Vancouver Island, Victoria, and Nanaimo, and that's event security. And when I talk about event security, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the adaptability model of security, because every event is different. You need to assess different things, and it's kind of like an ad hoc service. So talk to me a bit about event security.
Yeah, sure. Well, I really got my start in there in event security back in 2017. So it's gone now, which is a huge shame. But on Vancouver Island, there was the All Fun property, which had like water slides and go-kart track and mini golf and a bunch of things. But the big thing that they had, the big attraction, was Western Speedway, which is a quarter-mile racetrack. And so we started doing security there, I think back in 2017. And that was my brief kind of intro to event security. The people who are out there, enthusiasts for, monster trucks and demolition derbies. And it was really fun to be involved with.
Right.
It was a smaller size for event security. Typically we'd have like 5 or 6 guards working out there, doing bag checks and checking the beer garden, checking IDs and dealing with aggressive people from time to time. So then in 2018, we got the opportunity to work with the Save on Foods Memorial Center and the Victoria Conference Center. And so those were, really very different properties, but a lot bigger needs than that Western Speedway. And so through the arena, I got to do event security for, like Bryan Adams, Imagine Dragons, Santana. Those are some really big names, like big concerts.
Those are big names for sure.
Yeah. And like, comedy, we had like Russell Peters come through and some other folks as well, Jim Jeffries. And yeah, he was at the arena twice, actually.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and he's pretty funny. Yeah. And then in addition to that, we also did the World Juniors back in 2018, 2019. So, just being a part of such a big prestigious event was incredible for me. And then we also did a PGA tour in Victoria. And so I got to lead basically all of those events for Paladin and learn on the fly about what it means to do event security. And then also we were involved with Rock Ambleside Park for a few years, and that was a really incredible experience too. We deployed about 60 guards at the same time to that event, and it's really, I really love in event security. Like you said, adaptability is so key. Like, there's so many different roles and things you need to learn what the client wants you to do and then explain it to somebody else, in like 10 minutes and then get them to then do it. So like that kind of on the fly learning and instructing is really challenging, but it can be so fun. Like I remember during Rock Ambleside Park, I probably worked 3 16-hour days in a row. And then we'd all go back to the hotel and unwind a bit and like being there and just hyper focused on one thing to make it run smoothly and make sure everybody has a fun time is just so satisfying. I totally love to be involved in that. And, honestly, I could say I enjoy the stress of it too. Sometimes, you gear up for it and then you're just there only focused on that one thing for a while and then it ends and you can just relax. And it's really nice to see like the ebb and flow of that type of work.
Yeah, I was going to say when we were talking about like this compassionate approach, I think it becomes challenging at a big event, either call it a concert, anywhere where there's high energy people. And as a security professional, you need to, control certain crowds or whatever. What are some of like the standards for event success? Like what's kind of like the standard for deportment as well as a security professional, because with such high energy people and I guess like context, what are some of the main challenges there?
You really have to make sure that people know what they're doing and play to their strengths, right? Because, you have people doing bag checks and then you have roamers and so you have ushers as well. And we also provide first aid and medical to a lot of events. So you have to know your people. You have to know what they're good at and what they're not good at, so you know how to deploy them correctly. And then talking about deportment is very key that everybody knows that, this is a place where people are here to have fun. So as much as you can, you really need to have a customer service approach. And like, that's what our clients expect, right? So, you got to be friendly as much as possible, make sure that you're matching the energy of that. And so, when you're there as a security person, you have to be a security person, right? So you have to make sure that you're respectable, but the patrons do want to see you having fun too a little bit. So you kind of have to match where they're at a bit. And I think one of the most successful things that you can do with event security is enforcing the rules, with a customer service approach, right? Like, I think one of the things that you deal with pretty frequently that's a bit of a gray area is like, there's always parents bringing in a bit of food for their kids, and that's not expressly allowed, but knowing when to accommodate that and when to push back on that is really critical, because for the most part, clients don't mind that sort of thing, especially if they're bringing in stuff that they don't sell, right? Like, nobody, they're not going to sell apple slices at the concession. So like, what's the harm, right? So, but making sure that the team is catching, people trying to bring in outside drugs and alcohol or water, not water necessarily, but like, a lot of venues don't allow people to bring in any liquids because it's too difficult to determine what they are. Right. 100%. So, yeah. So knowing, getting an experienced team that knows how to make those decisions is really, really critical. If you're not controlling that outside drugs and alcohol, things can go sideways for sure.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
It's so critical. Yeah.
So now that's super interesting. Talk to me about what happens before the event. Is there like kind of like a site risk assessment for potential hazards, and what happens? Definitely. Like, what happens backstage, quite literally? Before,
I'm happy to speak to that. So like, usually doing event security properly means being very, very proactive. And if you're not, you can get caught in a really bad situation. Like, we've had to step in for other companies from time to time when they haven't planned their resources well, and all of a sudden you get a call from the company like a week out to an event saying, hey, we don't have adequate staffing to do this safely, and you got to step in and do that. So you really got to start planning months in advance to understand what the roles are that your clients need you to do, and at a high level, so that you can explain to guards when you're trying to book them for the event and make sure they're available. And then what you've got to do is make sure you're thinking about your organizational structure. So I did some courses at the JIBC for the incident command system. The BC ERMS, I think, is the right phrasing for that. But it's so applicable, talking about incident command and emergency response to planning major events, because you really have to think about you're creating an organization for 2 days or 3 days or 1 day, and then just collapsing it. So you got to know like who's in charge of who and what they're doing months in advance. So it's really common to create a security plan with your clients where it like lists all of that, emergency response procedures, what the guards are going to be doing, how many guards are deployed to different areas, and then from there create post orders, really abbreviated, because you got to know that you're going to have to explain this to somebody in half an hour and then expect them to do it, right? So it's all got to be very common sense, very little jargon. You have to be able to explain it easily to somebody and have them understand you, right? So, so you've got to do all your training beforehand, months beforehand, and then be able to execute the day of, because there's some roles that you can just have people come in and be given a minimal briefing and be able to execute, but there's some that you really cannot. And so that's where it comes down to knowing your people and knowing who is capable of what.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. You basically, I think you kind of uncovered a lot of really interesting points of event security. Now, I want to change gears a bit, because with your experience in security, how many years has it been you in the security industry?
So with Paladin, just over 10 years, and then we could tack on one additional year. So
there you go.
About 11,
one unofficial one.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So with that experience,
and 2 months for legal reasons, I was not working as a security officer.
Oh, right. That was we don't talk about that. That's funny. Now, with all your knowledge and experience you've gained, you probably, and again, I just want to change gears a bit here to see, what do you think the security industry as a whole in Canada is heading? what are some of the trends that you've seen that could impact the security in the coming years? And I guess, like, how do you see yourself in Paladin adapting to those trends?
I think we're going to continue to see security move. This is just my opinion, so people can disagree with me. But I think we're going to continue to see security move away from a law enforcement style approach. I mean, obviously it depends on the environment that we're working in, but really a further emphasis on customer service and like making the uniform look friendlier, more approachable, more dressed down. You know what I mean? To make that focus on more of an ambassador, customer service ambassador type thing. You know, I think the training will largely stay the same, or it may even expand. I think it'll expand more to focus on, you know, mental illness and, you know, mental health, and just more recognition and visibility for, I think people with disabilities or you know, neurodivergent people, and just working with people from all walks of life. I think that is really going to be the focus of it, and the expansion of it.
Definitely. No, I agree with you on that, because in a sense, in previous episode of this podcast, we've talked about kind of like the trends, and obviously some people go with the technological side of it, but also how we're like elevating the security bar of like the security officer, you know, and we're trying to elevate that standard with deportment, with specialized training, like you were mentioning.
Well, one thing I was going to say as well is, you know, one of our big clients on the island is BC Housing, and we've really done some innovative training, and they created an innovative security program for them where, you know, the mission statement of our guards is really about community safety. Because we're there for the residents of supportive housing facilities, but also for the neighborhood. So our staff kind of perform almost like a neighborhood community safety officer role, you know, and I think it's been a really interesting program because the compassion is the main focus, right? Figuring out how to be a member of the community and to serve people, even if they're breaking the law and things like that, and making sure that the holistic safety of the community is what's at the forefront. And that's been a really, really incredible program. And I think like we've taken a lot of lessons from that and used them in other places.
That's amazing. And I think all these work and giving back to the community and keeping our community safe, it kind of also shows to the world that, and it has proven to people that are new to the industry, that security can also be a long, fulfilling career. Whether you in the future decide to go into law enforcement, paramedics, become a nurse or whatever, security as a career now is seen more professionally, in the sense that people can have long, rewarding and fulfilling careers. That in the past there wasn't so much of an industry, I guess, that now people are looking at security as a more serious, more fulfilling kind of career opportunity. So that's awesome. Now, Aaron, a bit about you, I guess, talking about the future. What's next for Aaron Kolarcik? What are some of your either short-term, long-term goals? Where do you see yourself? And what are some of your plans?
Yeah, certainly. I think, well, I mean, it's kind of I knew this was an interview, but it seems like a job interview type question, but yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So for me, I feel like, I have been really blessed and had a lot of different roles in Paladin and grown a lot. And, I think for our business unit, or for Vancouver Island, like my main focus this upcoming year is just improving quality and really doubling down on our administrative obligations to our staff and clients. Like, we're working on updating a lot of post orders, a lot of train checklists, and so really just doing a push towards quality control and just really re-emphasizing what the Paladin difference is and what we have the opportunity to bring to our clients, because I have an incredible team of managers here on the island, PRCs and support staff, and we're really working well as a team. And I feel like we have an opportunity to get ahead right now and really focus on those key things that will set us apart from our competitors. So that's the focus internally, operationally. That's how I'm directing the operation this year. But for me personally, I want to make sure being a director is different from being a CSM or an SBM or a security guard. And I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to focus on right now in supporting my team locally and Paladin in general is, learning more about organizational management, maybe some more about finances. I've been thinking about doing some courses in regards to that. But yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways I've built this role for myself on the island, and now I feel like I need to hold myself to almost like a higher standard to support my team. Like, this is what's being demanded of me now, and so I need to rise to meet those demands for myself. So
amazing. And for those listeners out there that are maybe thinking about joining the security industry, or maybe they're already in the security industry and they're looking to maybe grow or expand their knowledge, what is some of your advice to them about, like, what is your advice for security professionals out there, to how to get the most out of their security experience, how to grow, how to, maybe some transferable skills from field to the office, because you've been there and maybe some people want to follow in your footsteps. So what's your advice for security professionals out there?
Yeah. So I think one of the best pieces of advice that I could give to people is take notes. Like, as a security officer, is so critical to writing good reports and being a witness if you're ever called to be a witness. But honestly, taking notes is a really good skill, and it sounds so banal, to say something like that. But clients love it. Your boss is going to love it if you show up to the different meetings you have in your conversations and you take notes on what's being said, and then you can repeat it back to your clients later. Like, that is so impressive. I think I always had that habit, and clients really responded well to it. And it just helps you remember, because I think one of the big things that you deal with when you become a manager for Paladin, I think a lot of other companies too, is just you have to process so much information. There's like so much information that is flying at you that you need to remember, and you need to be realistic with yourself and just know you're not going to remember. And so I've always tried to be very realistic with myself and just know, like, hey, I'm not going to remember this, so I'm going to write it down.
Nice.
That is a skill that is never going to let you down, I think.
That's awesome.
And I had a couple other thoughts too. Like, I think being open to learning, just knowing that everything can teach you, and just knowing that, like, you don't always have the best answer or the right approach. Sometimes that'll come from your staff. Sometimes it'll come from your clients or from people you meet. So just always being open to learning what the world has to teach you and what other people have to teach you, and being personable. It goes so far. If your goal is always to learn and to resolve conflict and to find solutions, you're gonna get where you need to go. And also, one thing I can't emphasize enough is don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Like, if you don't understand something, there's a pretty good chance that other people don't understand as well. So being unafraid to look dumb and just to ask a question can really save you a lot of a headache. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
No, that's really good advice. Was there anything, Aaron, that I did not ask, something that you have going on that you wanted to share with the world?
Oh man, I don't know.
That's fine. If you don't, you don't. If you don't, you don't.
I mean, if I want to talk about anything right now, it's the people I work with. They're great, and we have a great culture. Paladin in general provides the framework for that, and I've been really thankful to be a part of this overarching team, and I'm very proud of the team that I have here locally. So shout out to Victoria and Nanaimo.
Nice, D. You did have something to say.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, this has been an amazing chat, very eye-opening. I learned a lot. I'm sure that our listeners are going to learn a lot as well. As always, thanks for being part of the Difference Makers, because you are a difference maker, and you take care of yourself, Aaron.
Yeah, you too, Diego. I really appreciate the chance to get to talk to you today. It's been fun, thinking about the industry and where it's going to go, and talking about some of my experiences. Yeah, thanks for giving me the time.
Hey, Thanks for tuning in with the Difference Makers. If you want to hear more about the ins and outs of the security industry from real professionals, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share. Also, check out new episodes on the first Tuesday of every month. Till next time.